Hey guys, so The Last of Us 2 is out. The story of Ellie and Joel continues with some returning characters from the original and a bunch of new ones. A brand new region and some sporty new mechanics are in this one, along with some brand new bugged out animations. So if you haven't heard by now, this game has some seriously glitchy animations of characters during cutscenes and in-game scenes. It's constant. Characters, hair, their faces, their clothes, and their body positions are all over the place.
Wait, how did you get the scar?
I fell on my knife.
Okay. Hey, he's got that videotape thing.
Huh.
I don't know how this didn't get caught before the game released, but it's quite literally happening the entire game. If the story wasn't as good as it is, it could have ruined the game. A big change to this game is the new platforming system. You actually have a jump ability and the ability to catch ledges. I think this was automatic in the last game, but now you can do it whenever and wherever. The new ability allows you to use different methods to get to new areas, and thankfully, the pilot swimming mechanics are gone. There are also some new areas where rappelling and swinging from ropes can get you to different areas. I like some of the new navigation mechanics, and they add little puzzles to help exploration. The puzzles aren't particularly difficult, but they still manage to be fun without being too tedious. The issue of locked doors does get a little annoying though. I was starting to get that here we go again feeling when I came up to yet another locked door with Annie, even though it was an area that I'd already visited previously. The new system of jumping around isn't just for finding hidden loot either. You have to actually look around the environment because it's filled with hazards. If you're not careful, you'll step off a ledge just like I did.
She'll find them.
This happened to me again and again. My own fault because I didn't see the pit beneath me, but also because I was expecting some kind of stop when I came up to a ledge. There's no hand-holding in some of these dangerous areas, so keep an eye out for big drops. Because of some of the new mechanics and the fact that some enemies will break through walls to get to you, the action feels much faster. You can't sit back with some fights because the enemies can often swarm you. Getting a good position and planning out some of your moves can give you much easier time. There are also some new enemy types this time around. The Shambler looks like a whole bunch of apples fused to a person. They explode with some kind of boiling gas that does damage over time if you're nearby. They do more damage if they get a hold of you, so you may have to keep your distance. They also seem a little beefier than the other zombies and can trap you in with pockets of gas when you're trying to escape the other types. There's also the Stalker, which will wait around corners for you and doesn't fall for some of the tricks that the other types do because they're usually looking right at you most of the time. Bloater's Return is a super tanky mini-boss. They take a lot to bring down and they still have the one shot from the last game. The combination of different types will keep you occupied long enough for the slow-moving enemies to make it to you for the insta-kill, so if you're spotted, get ready to use the hard-hitting weapons. I honestly don't remember if the last game had boss fights, but this one has quite a few. I don't mind the boss fights, but my biggest irritation was the constant one-shot mechanics. I mean, it's infuriating when you spent most of the fight running and shooting, trying not to miss because your ammo is so scarce, just to get insta-killed by a boss because they grabbed you. I hope you enjoy starting fights like that all over again, because that's almost all of them. You don't get shortchanged with this game. It's ridiculously long. Every time you think it's going to end, there's a whole other section or point of view that's going to extend the game. Even though I thought it could have ended at numerous points, the actual ending justifies the length of the game and, spoiler alert, possibly sets up the series for a third game. There are also several time jumps. You bounce between 2 years ago, 4 years ago, a few weeks, and constant adding in a backstory. It can be a little jarring. I really didn't care about Abby's backstory because of what she does early in the game. I spent a lot of the first parts of the game just wanting to hunt her down. Because of the early actions she took, I really didn't like the character changing at first, but the ending did justify the different points of view and is really worth the time. The length of this game and the great but tragic story that's told really gives you your money's worth. There are some places in the game that you really get to explore, like the first time you get into Seattle. This is a pretty big area and you actually get access to a map.
So, where are we? Pretty sure we're here.
This is something I'm really happy they built on since the last game. You have an indicator that tells you where you are and some places you may have passed that could be of interest to you. It's not super detailed, but that actually helps to add to the fun of traveling around using a paper map. It helps to look around too. There are plenty of collectibles to be on the lookout for. The dog tags from the previous games return to be collected by both playable characters, but there's also collectibles unique to each of them. Ellie's sections have trading cards that can be collected with all types of superhero/villain characters and their own bios on them. Abby has a fascination for collection as well with coins.
Look at that. 1978.
I believe collecting these boosts the points you get from purchasing stuff between games, so you're going to want to keep a lookout for them. You can get lost pretty easily in some sections. Fortunately, there are often hints if you wander around for too long, and the hints will get more detailed the longer you linger. The downside of this really helpful tool is that when you're trying to scavenge an area or find hidden areas, the hint screen will constantly pop up to tell you where you should be going to continue the story. If you're anything like me, you want to look around for anything that you may have missed, especially because you may not be able to go back. I skip past so much loot because I accidentally went to a door that closes behind you and doesn't allow you to go back. This happened to me a few times, and you may need to make a habit of saving often. The game also auto-saves in each new section, so if you didn't manually save in the last part, you ain't going back. You'll have to grab it on the next playthrough. It's great to be playing as Ellie again, traveling through a new place, and she won't be alone. Dina is going to be your traveling companion for a good portion of the game, and she can be really helpful. She's got your back when it comes to dealing with infected and spotting enemies that you may not have seen. She'll call them out for you, and a temporary marker will let you know who she's talking about. When there are numerous enemies, or at least enemies in pairs, she'll even assassinate the other enemy while you're taking one out. As helpful as she can be, sometimes she can be a hindrance. She will steal cover from you, pushing you out into the open where enemies can see you, get in the way when you're trying to access an area, and the classic standing in the doorway when you're trying to back up. Even though the AI teammate can get a little annoying, she can be really helpful and adds a human element to the experience. You get to see the budding relationship between these two characters. There's real emotion between them, and you count on each other to get through their mission of finding the rest of the wolves. They carry each other and open up about their individual pasts and how they got to where they are now. Very much the opposite of Joel from the first game, where the details of his past were barely given, and he spends a lot of the game being very tight-lipped.
What are the chances he did stuff that you don't know about?
High. He wasn't very big on sharing.
That's not a knock on the first game, but it helps to contrast the difference in characters this time around, and has a real effect on how the characters interact with each other. There are also a few sections where you'll take over as Abby, a newcomer to the series. I didn't like playing as her as first because of her actions early on in the game, but her character and those around her really get fleshed out during their time together. You get to see that she isn't just a monster who has to be taken out, but a character with her own motivations for what she does. Now, Abby herself is one of the beefiest female protagonists I have ever seen. If there's a post-apocalyptic CrossFit, she has to be running it.
Get me up there.
Yep.
Here.
Okay. Holy shit! Look at you!
Pushed 185 pounds yesterday.
Yeah, right.
It was definitely noticeable how big she was, but it actually helped her character seem more imposing and stand out. Her muscle also helps to contrast the playstyle difference between her and Ellie. I found that Abby was a much more in-your-face experience. She has different weapons and different abilities afforded to her for a more straightforward playstyle. Now, the acting and the story in this game is phenomenal. This has been said about other games, but it's definitely true about this one that is so much like playing a movie. Their ability to make this game about the characters and personal story of these survivors deserves real recognition. The infection is more of a backdrop than the actual story. There are interesting characters, each with their own story of heartbreak, loss, and survival. Dina, Jesse, Owen, all of these characters, as well as Joel, Ellie, and Abby, really help to bring this world to life and make it interesting. The storytelling in this game is top level and manages to stand out even with the bugs plaguing the scenes. Getting to see returning characters and see what life is like for Ellie post-Fireflies was worth the wait. You don't just get to see the characters as survivors of violent murders, which they absolutely are, but you also get to see their lives change considerably. Last of Us 2 is a great follow-up to the original and absolutely deserves a playthrough even with the ridiculously buggy scenes. There are more options to get around and so much story in this with real and interesting characters. Plus, this game fleshes out each of the stories and keeps going every time you think it's over to give you a ton to experience. If the buggy scenes ever get fixed, this may be one of the best games to come out this year. Anyway, that's it. If you enjoyed this video or thought it was interesting, please like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.